Today's walk is starting off at the Riccall Regen Center, which is just behind me. There it is. There's a tennis club, a sports field, and there's quite a few village activities take place here throughout the year and during the week. Lots of clubs and societies meet up here as well. We're setting off down Landing Lane, which is just down there, about 300 metres, and then we'll be turning left onto the public footpath which leads to the flood bank of the River Ouse. This is the public footpath now. That direction is the flood bank, and just a little bit back up there behind that car is Landing Lane where we turned off. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but oh yeah, just about there you can see the smoke plumes. That's at Drax Power Station, probably about 15 miles away from here. We're just about to go through this little gate here. There we are, up to the flood bank, and then walk along the side of the River Ouse. It's also called Riccall Ings, and as you can see, somebody's put a little sign on the gate. It's not been there very long. Danes landed here 1066, and here we have a little bit better view of the sign that's just recently appeared on the gate here over to the Ings and the flood bank. It's quite nicely done actually, whoever's done it. Put a little black border around the letters. Looks quite good, doesn't it? Well, through the gate we go, and then up the flood bank. The gate's got a little public footpath sign here, which lets you know that there's a public footpath both left and right along the flood bank. Going left takes you towards the A19, and eventually you can go right into the town of Selby, which is about 5-6 miles walk from here. To the right takes you on a bit of a windy, meandering route as it follows the river north. Goes to Cawood, where it meets up with the wharf, but I'll be turning right just before you get to the village of Kelfield to head back into Riccall. This is the view from the top of the flood bank, looking on the direction of Cawood and Kelfield, the River Ouse. It's a tidal river right up to Naburn Lock, and it looks as though the tide's out and it's just on the way in now. We'll just swing around and have a look towards the southerly direction. That's towards Selby. The River Ouse passes through Selby and eventually joins up with the Humber, not too far from Goole. That's the path that we've taken. Over on the right hand side you might just be able to make out the water tower at Riccall. Don't think you can quite see it from here, but there is a windmill. It's also called the Spice Mill because it's an Indian restaurant, and very nice it is too. And that's the path that we took over from Landing Lane. Heading in this direction. Nice pleasant day. Got to run the gauntlet of cows shortly. There's a load of cows come and spend summer here grazing the land. I'm not keen on cows. I usually hop through the barbed wire fence, walk along the field, and then rejoin the track after I've got past them. I have been brave, and some days I've actually walked past them, but I'm not too sure. I had a spy of them as I was walking down from Landing Lane, and they looked to be right across the whole width of the track, and when they're spread out like that they look a bit scary to me. This is one of the many pumping stations along the flood bank that help to keep the land drained in this area. We just have a little walk this way, going back the way we've come a little bit. We don't trip up over on all these rocks. These are the pipes that carry the water back into the Ouse, and there's a little bit of an outlet there you can just see behind that fence. But this is an interesting contraption that here, the blue device, at the moment there's no skip in there, but when these are in action, that's like a claw underneath, or a comb, swings out, drops down into the water and picks up any debris or vegetation that would block up the sluice gate, I guess is what you would call it. And it picks it all up and drops it into a skip, which is usually parked just by the gate there underneath where it's parked up. And then it carries on doing that, usually for the duration of the water being pumped out. At the moment the pumps aren't active. even though we've had quite a bit of rain in the last few days, it doesn't look as though this particular dike or drain is overflowed. And over in the distance you can just see one of the telephone towers. That's at the Environmental Agency. They have a big solar farm there as well. And moving over there, you can just see in the distance some of the cows that we've got to run the gauntlet of before getting back onto landing lane. Unfortunately, it looks like they are right next to this field of green stuff, which I'm not quite sure what it is, but they plant this every year. It's almost like the sort of stuff that you could use for bedding, but I'm not sure. It goes sort of straw coloured and it's usually harvested about October. There is a track that runs along the side of the river. It's a bit damp and muddy at times, but it is usually clear of cows, so I might have to resort to that route depending on what it looks like when I get down there. Well, as you can see, we're approaching the cows, but we've not got there yet. I do feel a detour coming on though. Looking over to the left, well, south I think it would be, just the other side of the river, is a little village of Wistow. Can't quite see it from here, but there's a church spire just over to the right. I'm just dropping down off the bank and we'll just see if we can get to the river. See if we can see the river as it is at the moment with the tide coming in, although parts of this is very boggy and it looks like this might be too boggy to navigate without my wellies. Ooh, let's see what it's like. Oh, maybe not too bad. Okay, at the moment. Yeah, I think we're going to make it. Yes, we have. Just feet a little bit wet, but not too bad. Right, climbing up this rather steep bank. Ooh, we made it to the top. And there's some sheep across there, and as you can see, the river's flowing upstream. So the tide's coming in. Although on the coast it could be going out by now. There's quite a bit of delay between the tide turning here and it turning on the coast. You can look at all the tide tables on the internet. Everything's just about on the internet these days. So there you go, there's the River Ouse, and we're going to plod back across the boggy bit here and then decide what to do about those cows when we get a bit closer. Here we are just in front of the cows. You can probably see them in the distance. They're stood sitting down, laying down, chewing the cud right across the public footpath along this flood bank. And now is when my bovine phobia kicks in big time, and I've just looked it up on the internet before I stopped to make this recording, and it is actually a recognised phobia. It's called bovinophobia or taurophobia, which is quite appropriate, I suppose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a look for a gap in the hedge or the fence. It's a barbed wire fence, but the barbs are only at the top and the lower part is often a big enough gap for you to squeeze through. So I'm going to look for a gap, squeeze through, and then walk in the field, which has been, well, been harvested now, so it's quite easy to walk along. And I can rejoin the flood bank a little bit further along and hopefully show you the concrete barges which are sunk into the side of the river. The gap in the fence looks like I might get nettled. I think I can squeeze through there and hopefully then my bovinophobia will disappear and I can get up close to the other side of the fence and just show you how big and scary looking these animals are. Wasn't too difficult to navigate, and I didn't get myself too much prickled by the thistle. Right, we're walking along this field now. You'll probably hear crunching the stalks of straw and coming up to the cows. These are actually beef cattle. I've been told by someone who was very brave and walked through the middle of them with her dog and told me that she'd lived on a farm when she was a child and she was quite comfortable walking through a field full of cows. But you see, they could tell she wasn't scared. Can you see that one there? It's looking at me. And that one. In fact, they all tend to look at me as I go past. I'm sure they recognise fear. And I'm sure if I was in there, it'd be just like Rawhide back in the 60s. A stampede. And I'd be in the middle somewhere, either being trampled on or running as fast as I could to get away from that. Look at that one there. That's a big one, isn't it? Can you see how it's looking at me? It knows. It can sense the power it has over me. But it knows also that I'm this side of the fence, so I'm perfectly safe. Unless cows can jump fences. Better get moving, I think. Made it back through into the flood bank via that nice little fence post there. I was able to climb over. And as you can see, we're the other side of the cows now. Although that one looks like it's heading towards me, maybe not. So going back up onto the top of the flood bank, if I'm in the right position, somewhere near here, we have a couple of barges, the concrete barges. Here we have what remains of 2 concrete barges. They've been left here since the 60s. I know this because I spoke to one of the people who lives in the houses just over there behind the Environment Agency. One of the chaps has worked for this agency since he left school back in the 60s, and he said that they were here then when he started work. And I'll get up a little bit close, but apparently they were made in 2 locations in the UK. One somewhere near Birmingham and another place near Hull. And they were used to transport goods along the canal between Hull and various other towns up towards York. And they're made out of concrete. Just after the war, there was a shortage of steel. So what they did, they made a steel frame and then made concrete slabs and fitted them into the frame. You wouldn't think concrete would float, would you? But if it displaces enough water, then it will. I think concrete's about almost twice as heavy as water, so it would need quite a big displacement of water to float, but they obviously did do, and they've been abandoned, and the sort of nature's taken over and grown around them. So I'll see if I can get a little bit closer. It means dropping down into this ditch here, which is a bit precarious, but it's not full of water at the moment. So, oh, look at those teasels, aren't they nice? Right, let's get up a little bit closer and we can have a look at this barge. Here's the front end, or bow if you're a nautical type person, and just over there you can see part of the rope where the anchor would have been, and when they want to fasten it to moor it up at the side of the river. And this bit is steel, but as you can, oh no it isn't, no, there's just a, it looks like steel, but if you look further along and you get up close, I think it's just a little bit that's on the front end to protect the concrete. But when you get up here, you can pretty much see it's concrete. Right, let's have a little walk around it if we don't get too nettled. And there's a second one a little bit further along. There are trees growing out of them and all sorts there now. Let's see if we can get to the second one. I think this is still the first one here, and then everything's overgrown so much. Oh, there's another little bit just there in that corner. And have we got a set? Oh, here we are. Here's the second one. It's also very much overgrown, but you can just see part of the concrete there, and then the shape of the hole. There's soil sort of grown up and everything. I think we've probably got to the end of them now. Oh no, maybe that's a bit more. Yeah, it looks like a bit like a boat inside there. I'm not going to risk going through all those nettles, not in my shorts anyway. Maybe another day I'll come in long trousers and investigate. And that's back to nature there. You can just see the river through those trees. And over there's the Environment Agency. And a bit closer view of that cell tower. Coming up just ahead is Landing Lane, and as the sign back at the gate earlier says, this is where the Danes landed in 1066, and we had the Battle of Fulford and also battle at Stamford Bridge. Quite a lot of the Danes settled here in Yorkshire, and there's a lot of Danish names to the villagers in the area. And here we are, the little information plaque that tells you all about the Vikings and all the other things around and about Riccall area. 1066, September the 20th, 300 ships landed. Of course, that was before Harold had to go and fight William of Orange down at the Battle of Hastings, so him and his men were well and truly tired by the time they'd walked back down, so there's no wonder they were beaten so easily, I guess. And there we are, that's the path which takes us over towards Kelfield. Kelfield is just behind those trees, about 1.5 miles away, and there's another one of those pumping stations there with a grabber that grabs debris out of the dike. It's called Dam Dyke. Here we are at Riccall Dam pumping station, and just there you can probably see the grabbing machine. I'll have to pull back a bit so you can see it, and it actually is described here. It's called an automatic weed screen cleaner with moving grab, and when this starts up it's quite dramatic. It's got a siren going and there's a little lamp on the top flashing. Oh, there's the lights at the back, they flash, and as you can see there's a big skip full of stuff that it's grabbed out of Dam Dyke, which is just down there. Very peaceful looking stream, isn't it? Right, let's carry on. Next stop we'll have a little look around the allotments. Here we are just by the allotments. There are quite a few allotments in Riccall. These are just on the north side of the village. Pretty good, aren't they? I always think allotments look really nice, especially at this time of year. Oh, look at all those green beans there. Plenty of them, isn't there? Much more than I've got on my big green beans at home. Almost back into the village now. It was a really interesting walk. Managed to avoid the cows, and we'll have another walk coming up soon around Skipwith Common. That's it for now, and see you on the next walk.